If you walk into a dealership right now, you might notice something strange. Bikes sitting untouched, prices dropping, and brands you grew up with suddenly struggling to survive. This is not just a bad sales year. These are warning signs, because the 7 bikes on this list are barely holding on. Number 7. Indian. There was a time not long ago when Indian stood shoulder to shoulder with Harley-Davidson, not as a knockoff, but as a serious rival with its own identity, engineering approach, and legacy. Revived by Polaris Industries, Indian stormed back into the spotlight with bikes like the Scout Bobber and the FTR, muscular, stripped-down machines that spoke directly to younger, performance-minded riders. That momentum, however, began to stumble in the year 2023. That was the year Indian decided to make a branding decision that still ripples through forums and dealerships today. In an internal memo sent to its dealer network on February 13th, Indian announced that it would permanently retire its multicolored Native American headdress logo, replacing it with a more corporate, monochrome version. The backlash was swift. Indian forums lit up with frustration. Riders who had once praised the company's comeback as a triumph of authenticity suddenly saw it as uncertain and corporate. That headdress wasn't just a patch, it was the emblem of a storied brand. To remove it without consensus felt, to many, like stripping away the spirit of Indian itself. This identity crisis couldn't have come at a worse time. Indian had been gaining serious ground with younger riders. The Scout Bobber, the FTR, and the Chief all brought something fresh to the cruiser and performance segments. They offered tech, handling, and style that Harley in some cases didn't. But younger riders are also brand aware. They notice when a company flinches. The logo change was read as a signal that Indian wasn't sure what kind of brand it wanted to be anymore. And when confidence fades from a brand, buyers hesitate. Not because the bikes are bad, but because the vision feels cloudy. Indian also suffers from limited dealership infrastructure. Compared to Harley, Honda, or Yamaha, Indian's dealer footprint is still relatively small. That means every single customer experience matters. It also means there's little margin for error when brand loyalty is tested. For a brand still rebuilding from decades in the shadows, alienating even a small portion of the base cuts deep. Because Indian is not just fighting for market share, it's fighting for cultural gravity. Without it, it becomes just another name on a spec sheet. Still, the bikes remain excellent. Models like the Chief Dark Horse, the Challenger, and the FTR are carbon push boundaries and offer riders alternatives to Harley's established lineup. They deliver real performance with engines ranging from 1,133 cubic centimeters to 1,768 cubic centimeters, horsepower figures from 100 to 120, and torque that can top 120 pound-feet depending on the model. And dry weights vary, with the FTR weighing around 530 pounds, while a full-dress Challenger tips the scales just under 840. Pricing for Indian's current range reflects this performance emphasis. The Scout Bobber starts at around $13,499, while the Challenger Limited breaks into the mid-$20,000 range depending on customization. Indian may still have power on paper, but it's losing ground in the showroom. And when the fall happens faster than anyone expected, the damage looks a lot more like what happened to KTM. Before we dive deeper, if you're finding this content eye-opening, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more insider looks at the motorcycle industry. We're digging deep, so don't miss what's coming up next. Number 6. KTM. Once hailed as a symbol of off-road dominance and no-compromise engineering, KTM's current crisis is as sharp as the lean angles it was once known for. The brand's rise was fueled by an aggressive expansion strategy. More models, more factories, more countries. But by the time 2024 arrived, KTM was standing on the edge of a cliff, and the ground gave way. The situation hit headlines in November of 2024 when Pierre Mobility, KTM's parent company, filed for self-administration. That term may sound harmless, but it is the corporate equivalent of intensive care. It means a company is no longer able to manage its finances, restructure its obligations, or guarantee operations without legal intervention. In plain terms, KTM ran out of money, and the markets responded. Within months, stock prices for the company cratered, falling more than 80%. For a brand built on precision, this was chaos. The collapse wasn't caused by a single misstep. It was a series of decisions that snowballed. KTM ramped up global production, betting big on expansion in both Western markets and developing regions. At peak, KTM was producing more than 1,000 motorcycles a day, many of them low-displacement models aimed at high-volume markets in Asia. The problem? That demand never showed up. Warehouses filled, showrooms overflowed, and inventory sat idle while cash flow dried up. The loss of KTM's manufacturing partnership with Bajaj in India was another blow. Bajaj had previously owned a substantial stake in KTM and provided cost-efficient production and distribution through its own vast network. But in 2021, Bajaj sold its shares and KTM's access to affordable manufacturing vanished with it. Without Bajaj, KTM was left trying to maintain global output levels with rising cost and declining unit sales. It was an unsustainable formula, and the result was predictable. Factory lines were paused, future models were frozen in development, and more than 300 employees across engineering, logistics, and design were laid off. Even the brand's crown jewel, its racing division, could not shield KTM from financial collapse. Despite competitive success in MotoGP and off-road circuits, the costs of maintaining a world-class racing operation offered little in return when dealerships could not move stock. And while KTM's dirt bikes and street fighters have loyal followings, they couldn't offset the growing losses in KTM's broader lineup. Models like the Duke and Adventure series saw demand soften just as the company needed revenue the most. In terms of specifications, KTM's popular middleweight, the KTM 890 Adventure, offers 105 horsepower, 890 cubic centimeters of engine displacement, and 74 pound-feet of torque. Wet weight tips the scale at 478 pounds. Priced at $16,200, it once delivered high performance for the money. But in today's climate, even a machine this capable struggles to find a buyer. KTM's fate now hangs in the balance. Racing can't save it. Innovation alone won't either. What it needs is stability, confidence, and a clear path forward, none of which are guaranteed. KTM's fight is no longer about domination. It's a desperate sprint to stay alive before the lights go out for good. Coming up next is the brand that turned its comeback into catastrophe. Number 5. Norton. Legacy alone cannot carry a brand through a storm, and Norton's storm was like no other. What began as a bold promise of revival ended in one of the most scandal-ridden chapters in modern motorcycle history. Founded in the early 20th century and once revered as a crown jewel of British engineering, Norton fell into the hands of businessman Stuart Garner in the year 2008. Under his ownership, the brand vowed to blend nostalgic craftsmanship with cutting-edge performance, reigniting global excitement. But behind the scenes, those promises unraveled quickly. While press releases boasted of innovation and upcoming deliveries, customers were paying deposits for motorcycles that would never arrive. Pension funds from Norton employees were misused, siphoned into other ventures, and ultimately lost. As the truth surfaced, the brand's image collapsed under the weight of betrayal. By the year 2020, Norton had fully imploded. Investigations revealed a web of financial mismanagement and outright fraud. Even motorcycles that had been delivered were plagued by quality control issues so severe that some units failed basic inspection standards. The factory that once promised a new era of British power stood still, its gates locked and its future uncertain. Employees found themselves abruptly cut off, emails unanswered, and workstations abandoned. For many, the betrayal felt personal. Norton was not just a company, it was a legacy that had been defiled. Trust once shattered, as it turns out, is nearly impossible to rebuild. That's where TVS Motor Company stepped in. In April of 2020, the Indian manufacturing giant purchased Norton's remaining assets for $20 million. A new headquarters was announced. TVS pledged a fresh start, restoring operations, honoring past deposits, and turning Norton into a global competitor once more. They invested in modernizing facilities and committed to bringing the long-awaited models into production. The flagship sport bike, the V4 SV, carried a lofty price tag of $50,000 and aimed to redefine the brand's future. Its specs were impressive on paper, but the reality has been slower. Repeated production delays and supply chain setbacks have haunted its release. And worse, many loyal customers who paid deposits under the Garner regime still have not received their bikes or refunds. The challenges extend beyond public perception. Norton's global dealership network remains thin, limiting access for both buyers and service. Parts availability is still inconsistent. TVS has proven itself patient, but patience alone cannot turn a tainted legacy into a trusted one. While Norton's new owners are trying to do the right thing, they are also facing the reality of a damaged brand reputation. Nostalgia can bring attention, but it cannot sell bikes without delivery support and community trust. The current V4 SV Superbike offers a V4 engine that produces approximately 200 horsepower with a displacement of 1,200 cubic centimeters and generates 120 pound-feet of torque. It features high-end Ulan suspension, Brembo brakes, and a lightweight aluminum chassis. The dry weight is around 490 pounds, but even with performance like that, the market response has remained hesitant. At $50,000, the price pushes Norton into exotic territory, and without a strong dealer network or historical reliability, the risks feel too high for many riders. Number 4. Harley-Davidson. For generations, this brand was more than just a motorcycle company. It was the heartbeat of American rebellion, freedom, and blue-collar pride. From veterans to weekend warriors, the name carried weight far beyond the road. But in 2025, Harley-Davidson finds itself in a deep identity crisis. While other manufacturers adapt and evolve, Harley clings to a legacy that once lifted it to greatness, but now seems to be holding it back. The company's entry-level models, once seen as the bridge to younger riders, are no longer affordable. Models that were built to be raw and accessible now carry price tags starting at over $13,000. After freight charges, dealer fees, and optional upgrades, that figure quickly grows to over $17,000. That kind of pricing alienates new riders and undermines Harley's own working-class roots. Touring bikes like the Road Glide, Street Glide, and Ultra Limited now regularly surpass $40,000. For many buyers, especially those outside the Harley bubble, it raises an uncomfortable question. What exactly are you paying for? Performance? Not quite. Many Harley models still rely on the air-cooled Milwaukee 8 V-twin engine, which delivers satisfying torque but lacks the refinement, efficiency, and innovation found in competitors. To put it in perspective, a standard Road Glide CVO equipped with the Milwaukee 8 121 produces approximately 115 horsepower and 130 pound-feet of torque from a 1983 cubic centimeter engine. Then there is the tech. While the brand has made small moves in the digital direction, much of the Harley lineup still leans heavily on analog gauges and old-school switchgear. Riders looking for adaptive cruise control, lean-sensitive ABS, or high-resolution TFT displays may find themselves disappointed or forced into costly upgrades. Harley's infotainment system, while functional, lags behind competitors in responsiveness and screen quality. Harley's attempt to jumpstart the future with the Livewire was ambitious but poorly executed. At nearly $30,000 with a range under 150 miles, the Livewire priced itself out of the very market it hoped to capture. When sales flopped, Harley spun it off into its own brand and quietly stepped away. More recently, the Pan America and Sportster S offered glimpses of progress with the Revolution Max engine, but instead of revamping the core lineup, Harley isolated these bikes in a sea of legacy cruisers. What is more alarming is the demographic trajectory. Harley's core audience is aging fast, and the next generation of riders is not buying in. The leather-clad brotherhood culture, the noise, the weight, the chrome, it appeals to fewer people with each passing year. New riders crave agility, versatility, and technology. They want bikes that can tour, commute, and carve back roads, and they want all of that without being told how to dress or what lifestyle to adopt. That shift in attitude exposes Harley's biggest vulnerability, its message no longer resonates. With a starting price around $54,900 for a fully loaded Road Glide CVO, many riders are turning elsewhere, toward more versatile machines that cost half as much. The question is not whether Harley makes good motorcycles. The question is whether it still makes sense to buy one in 2025. Harley might still have its name, but Moto Guzzi is fading without even a fight. Its disappearance is so quiet most riders have not even noticed. Number 3. Moto Guzzi. In the world of motorcycles, some brands roar with dominance while others linger like a whisper from another era. Moto Guzzi is one of those whispers, steady, loyal, but slowly disappearing in plain sight. Founded in the year 1921, this Italian manufacturer holds one of the oldest legacies in the entire industry. For more than 100 years, Moto Guzzi has been building bikes out of the same factory in Mandello del Lario, perched on the shores of Lake Como. That romantic detail alone is enough to warm the heart of any die-hard motorcyclist. And yet that same charm has become a double-edged sword, because Moto Guzzi's story is no longer about timelessness. It's about stagnation. While other manufacturers evolved, chasing performance, integration, and cutting-edge design, Moto Guzzi remained rooted in the past. For decades, they relied on their trademark 90-degree air-cooled V-twin engine, an architecture first introduced in the 1970s. This engine setup, mounted longitudinally with a shaft drive, is mechanically beautiful, but has struggled to keep up with modern expectations. And while rivals brought liquid cooling, advanced suspension geometry, and ride-by-wire tech to their full lineups, Moto Guzzi treated those features like optional extras. Even things like cornering anti-lock braking systems, ride modes, and modern digital displays arrived late or only on select models. One shining exception was the V85 TT, a retro-styled adventure bike that won hearts with its throwback looks and old-school personality. However, it delivered just 80 horsepower from its air-cooled 853 cubic centimeter engine, making it one of the least powerful options in its class. And even though it had charm, it felt more like an emotional tribute than a competitive product. More recently, Moto Guzzi released the V100 Mandello, a liquid-cooled leap forward, finally offering modern electronics and semi-active suspension. It even came equipped with a 1,042 cubic centimeter engine, delivering 115 horsepower and 77 pound-feet of torque. This model proved that Guzzi could modernize when it chose to, but one bike cannot pull an entire brand out of decline. The real issue is Moto Guzzi's shrinking footprint. It sells fewer than 10,000 bikes per year worldwide. Many major cities in the United States and Europe no longer have a Moto Guzzi dealership, and parts availability can be inconsistent depending on the model and year. That lack of presence means fewer test rides, fewer new riders discovering the brand, and fewer repair shops equipped to handle their unique mechanical layout. This invisibility makes Moto Guzzi bikes feel like specialty items, appreciated by loyalists but irrelevant to the broader market. Financially, the situation is not dire, but it's not promising either. Moto Guzzi is owned by the Piaggio Group, the same parent company that controls Vespa and Aprilia. Between the three, Vespa continues to dominate sales volumes while Aprilia pushes hard into performance and racing. Moto Guzzi, by comparison, receives far less attention, fewer updates, and almost no promotional spotlight. Piaggio has made updates to the factory and introduced new production methods, but their primary focus lies elsewhere. Labor costs in northern Italy remain high, and the brand's historic manufacturing style makes it difficult to compete on price or output. As for the specs, most current Moto Guzzi models come with double-disc front brakes, a single-disc rear brake. Depending on the model, the weight ranges from 480 pounds to over 560 pounds. These bikes tend to have moderate seat heights and neutral riding positions, but they rarely push technological boundaries. At least Guzzi is still building bikes. Mitsubishi didn't go bankrupt or announce a shutdown, it just slowly erased itself from motorcycle history. Number 2. Mitsubishi. There was a time when Mitsubishi stood proudly among Japan's early motorcycle pioneers. In the post-war era of the 1950s and 1960s, the company did not just produce cars, it crafted two-wheeled machines that competed head-to-head with the likes of Honda, Yamaha, and Suzuki. Their best-known product, the Silver Pigeon scooter, became an icon of early Japanese mobility. It was a time when simplicity, durability, and practical design shaped what riders expected from motorcycles. And Mitsubishi had the industrial power and engineering capability to deliver all three. The Silver Pigeon line found its way into both civilian and government use. These scooters were reliable, easy to maintain, and perfect for navigating crowded cities in Japan's growing urban centers. By the early 1960s, Mitsubishi's motorcycle division was seen as a rising force, especially in the smaller displacement category. Yet as the decades moved forward and the motorcycle wars in Japan intensified, Mitsubishi began to withdraw. By the late 1970s, competitors were pouring resources into performance, racing technology, and export strategies. Honda was innovating with its CB series. Yamaha was developing its racing legacy, and Suzuki was expanding globally. Mitsubishi, however, began scaling back its two-wheeled operations. Production declined, model development slowed, and the once promising scooter division faded into the background. Unlike the bold exits or bankruptcies seen with other brands, Mitsubishi never issued a formal statement. It never explained or confirmed its withdrawal. It just stopped showing up. One year there were scooters on the assembly line, the next there weren't. No headlines, no press releases, just silence. In the decades that followed, Mitsubishi motorcycles became a footnote in history. The company focused its attention on automobiles and industrial equipment. What remained of its motorcycle operations was absorbed into broader licensing deals and discontinued projects. By the time the 1980s arrived, Mitsubishi's name had largely vanished from dealerships, showrooms, and racing events. The brand's motorcycles became collector's items, not for their performance, but for their rarity and the mystery surrounding their disappearance. In recent years, a few rumors have circulated about Mitsubishi's potential return to the two-wheeled market. Patent filings related to battery technology and electric drivetrains have surfaced, sparking speculation that Mitsubishi might re-enter the motorcycle space through electric vehicles. Some have pointed to the company's expertise in electric car development, hoping it might carry over to lightweight urban electric bikes or scooters. But to date, nothing concrete has emerged. No production models, no prototypes, no official announcements. Just vague paperwork and whispers on enthusiast forums. What does exist are a few remaining Silver Pigeons tucked away in museums, garages, and vintage scooter clubs. Occasionally, one might be seen restored at a Japanese classic show or paraded during a collector's meet in Los Angeles or Tokyo. These bikes, relics of another era, are all that's left of a once promising motorcycle division. Their lines are elegant, their engines small and efficient, their design reflective of a different time in Japanese manufacturing. For those who remember, Mitsubishi's two-wheeled history is a reminder of how quickly a brand can fade. While others fought to modernize and stay relevant, Mitsubishi simply let go. And yet, even Mitsubishi's silent exit feels more honest than what happened to Buell, a brand that keeps returning but never quite arrives. Are you still riding one of these bikes, or have you already moved on to something else? Drop a comment below and let us know which brands you think will survive and which ones are riding toward the end of the road. Number 1. Buell. There was a time when Buell felt like the future of American sport bikes, raw, nimble, and brimming with attitude. It began under the Harley-Davidson umbrella, founded by Eric Buell, a former engineer determined to challenge European dominance in high-performance riding. The bikes were lighter, more aggressive, and purpose-built for the kind of backroad twisties where torque meets adrenaline. But in 2009, Harley-Davidson shut the whole thing down. Just like that, Buell disappeared. Since then, it has been one resurrection after another. The brand keeps trying to rise from the grave under different ownership structures with bold promises, teaser photos, and show floor mock-ups. Yet every time, the comeback stalls. The story of Buell is now less about innovation and more about limbo. Loyal fans still hold out hope, but the brand has never been able to scale. Manufacturing delays, slow production schedules, and poor dealership support have plagued every attempt to revive it. Even the most recent push, featuring the Hammerhead 11904 and Super Cruiser concepts, generated excitement but left riders waiting for bikes that never reached showroom floors in volume. The truth is painful. Buell builds bikes that people want to ride but cannot consistently deliver them at scale. One of the more recent Buell models, the Hammerhead, boasts an 1194 cubic centimeter V-twin engine that produces 175 horsepower and 101 pound-feet of torque. It features a trellis frame, a fully adjustable suspension, and a dry weight of 430 pounds. The estimated starting price is $23,995. On paper, it's a beast. In practice, it's a unicorn, seen rarely and owned by few. The biggest issue is parts support. Even existing Buell owners struggle to find reliable aftermarket or OEM replacements. Dealerships are sparse, and customer service inconsistencies fuel hesitation among potential buyers. When riders think about long-term ownership, Buell often fails the durability and support test, not because the bikes are unreliable, but because the infrastructure around them barely exists. What you get is a performance-focused machine built by a team with heart, but not the commercial power to back it up. And then there's the branding problem. In a market saturated with established competitors, Ducati, Yamaha, Kawasaki, it is not enough to have a fast bike. You need a stable brand that inspires confidence. Buell's frequent starts and stops have created confusion in the marketplace. Riders are left wondering whether they are buying into a legacy or into a risk. Every time Buell reemerges, the message is clear. We're back, but riders have grown cautious. Promises have outweighed production. As of 2025, Buell's production remains limited, its market share microscopic. It is not that the bikes are poor, it is that the business model cannot sustain momentum. In many ways, Buell is a cautionary tale for niche brands trying to survive in an industry dominated by giants with global support networks. Talent and engineering can take you far, but only infrastructure keeps you there. These motorcycle brands are fighting for survival, but only time will tell if they can turn things around. If you enjoyed this breakdown, leave a comment, like this video, and subscribe for more in-depth content like this. You won't want to miss our next video. It's our next video.